Art in the City is back to bring inspiration, energy and light to Malaysia. CENDANA has created a jam-packed series of events to help bring everyone together through the arts. The Kuala Lumpur Creative Economic Forum brings together creative minds to connect and create the future of Malaysian art. Panggung Rakyat promotes Malaysia's unique arts and culture heritage through a series of authentic and traditional performances to inspire and wow the senses. CENDANA Open Art Classes are a series of free weekend classes by some of the most renowned artists and gurus in Malaysia for Malaysians. The Light Project aims to shine hope and light on the nation. All around Malaysia, public art and performances will light up the night. Studio C aims to curate and shape a contemporary, lively and inspiring selection of high-quality Malaysian craft products that reflects our rich artistic heritage, commitment to social responsibility and focus on a more sustainable future. KL Weekend is a free 4-day city festival fueling Kuala Lumpur with exciting dance, music, workshops, talks, screenings, food experiences and more. 50 years later, the National Cultural Congress Symposium will discuss and examine the development of culture in Malaysia. And Sensory will immerse you in a world of artworks without boundaries for the whole month of December in Kuala Lumpur. Explore and discover their stories and imaginations in the new world around you. Art returns to Malaysia with Art in the City. Come and join us to dance, sing, learn and be inspired by some of Malaysia's brightest art.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera and of course a very pleasant evening I wish to all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the pleasure to welcome each and every one of you to the Cultural Economy Development Agency CENDANA webinar in 2021 with the title Anticipating 2022 for the Creative Industry. This episode is brought to you by CENDANA in conjunction with the Art in the City 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the audience and the audience tonight, as we all know that the recent opening of the arts and culture sector breathed hope and optimism for the creative industry to bounce back with the recent announcement of Yang Berhormat Menteri Keuangan on the 188 million budget that has been allocated to the creative industry. It certainly gives us some hope on how that we can actually forecast and actually plan for 2022 for this creative industry. And as very recently also in November 2nd, Wisma Putra by the Minister of Foreign Affairs has also appointed two creative industry filmmaker as well as an actor to boost out Malaysia's cultural diplomacy in the region as well as in the world. Now, these trends and signs are giving us a message that indeed 2022 will be an exciting year for creative industry after 2 years of probably having some sort of a challenge. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, joining me today, there are 4 esteemed panelists that we have with us this evening to discuss on the 2022 outlook, as well as the circumstances and the forecast for the creative industry. I have the honor as well, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce you to this speaker one by one. So they will give you some sort of introduction of who they are, as well as the organization that they are representing. First and foremost, I would like to welcome Encik Junady Nawawi, the Group Chief Executive Officer of MyCreative Ventures Sdn Bhd. Encik Nawawi, if you may just take the floor for a short introduction, please.
Thank you, Dr. Zokhri. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a good late evening, everyone, all those who are here. Thank you for joining us at this session this late evening again, and thank you for having me. I would just like to start with a little bit of introduction for myself. I'm Junady Nawawi, the Group Chief Executive Officer of MyCreative Ventures. And with that, a little bit of background and history to MyCreative Ventures as an organization and as a group. Now, we were set up in 2012, September 2012 to be exact, right? With an initial seed capital by the government of Malaysia of 200 million. It was set up as an investment arm dedicated for the creative sector, right? And the initial amount is granted to us has been committed, almost fully committed, and quite a large sum has been disbursed in the form of debt and equity funding assistances, right? And our mission, going back to the original mandate, was simply to create job opportunities in the creative industry, contribute to the increase in income and growth for businesses and entrepreneurs in the creative industry, and also increase the contribution of our creative industry to our national GDP, which currently stands about 1.9% in terms of contribution, which is low if we compare it to regional benchmarks, which stands to between 5, 6 to 7%. And so that is the target that we have set for ourselves. And when we were first set up back then, almost 10 years by now, right, there was a vision behind it, because what I can say is that this sector comprises of a population that is, the fragments go down to the individual level. And we're not talking about big players. There are big players, but it's small compared to the rest of the population in the sector. So we were set up specifically for that purpose, to assist in the development of as many participants, if not all, within the sector. And of course, I have to say that many of them are, again, if they are an enterprise, they are micro, they're small, and typically they're not, if I can just simply say, as bankable as participants in the manufacturing sector, construction, and the like. So beyond that, we have gone through an evolution as well. And having started with the initial seed fund of 200 million, we received additional funding year on year subsequently, but not to that tune, of course. And in 2016, we were granted with about 50 million to go further in the private equity space, right? That means invest as an equity investor. And we have identified a few players in that space. Right? And in 2017, our two divisions, which we call our developmental divisions, namely CENDANA and Rio, were set up, right? And I will let my colleague Izan speak more on CENDANA later. I'll just give a little bit of intro in terms of our evolution. And we've come to the space where we are now in 2021. And I would say that COVID, of course, COVID has affected the sector. And last year, the sector was helped very much by the government's allocation under the Penjana program, and a total of about 150 million ringgit worth of assistances was granted, right? And we have been busy with rolling out the Penjana funds ever since, and we've now come towards the tail end of the Penjana program, and we're moving towards the next chapter of MyCreative as a group. Looking at the next 10 years, in fact. And perhaps in the shorter term, under the 12th Malaysia Plan, going up to 2025, we plan to increase the contribution of the sector to the GDP, to our national GDP. And with that, we have got plans in place, taking into account the recent budget announcement, right, and internal strategies that we are putting in place, new business models, new ways of doing things, without relying too much on government funding. So these are the areas that we are intending to explore as a group. Again, MyCreative Ventures being on the funding side, and CENDANA in particular, and Rio on the developmental side. Okay? I can share more as we go along. But for now, I think I will stop there. Doctor, if that's okay?
Yep. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us this evening. And so I hope that it's not too late to congratulate you on your appointment to lead MyCreative Ventures. Next, ladies and gentlemen, we have Puan Zainariah Johari, the head of arts and public spaces from Yayasan Hasanah. And interesting enough, Zainariah has a poll for all of us later on. So let's listen to Puan Zainariah Johari. Over to you, Zainariah.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Dr. Zokhri, for the kind introduction. A quick intro. Yayasan Hasanah is a foundation of Khazanah National Berhad, and I lead the arts heritage and public spaces, right? And we've been incorporate. Well, the foundation is 5 years old, and it's been very, very challenging, especially when the pandemic hit us globally. And I'm going to go straight into, as we know, it is obvious that how the arts practitioner were impacted. We are the first to close and last to open. And immediately when that happened, March 18, 2020, what we, myself as in this art space, was thinking, what can we do for our arts practitioner? How do we help them short of, is it just food basket? But we know how they are. They are practitioners. They want to, to create, and immediately it was almost cepat bertindak sort of thing, like what can we do? So I have a quick slide just to show the audience what has happened and what we're doing between then and now. So if I may, oops, okay. So what happened was we started what is called all I heard at that time on TV was musim COVID, musim COVID, and I said, wow. I mean, and at the same time, while the artists were not working, the demand for data because people were watching content increased, and I thought, okay, wait a minute, artis kita tak kerja tapi orang tengok content, so how do we help our artists, right? And that's when I thought, okay, we came up with what is called Arts for All Seasons. About sesungguhnya arts is, it's something happens throughout the year, and it's non-seasonal. And I just wanted to share, we started Arts for All Season in 2020. Hold on a second, guys. I apologize. Problem with my battery. Okay, sorry. I apologize. So I just want to share immediately, because we had to react fast. So we started Arts for All Season, whereby we managed to we invited artisans to apply to us and keep the ground robust, because we didn't want spirit to go down. So but kita tak nak people to feel, oh no, it's all doom and gloom, and let's see what we can do. So we had some money, and the board has been very kind to allow us to, to kind of top up a little bit more. And we did we opened up an application that resulted in 21 organization, almost 1,400 art practitioner, that we were able to engage them between October, middle to December, inshallah, 2021. So later on, I will share this because we want to carry this through, so that I think for us, what is important is obvious arts is impacted. How do we make it robust? How do we keep going without pulling everybody's spirit ke bawah? So next slide, please, quickly. And also what we did also in June was we invited musicians to go to PPV, like bringing the water to the horse, whereby they were able to perform. And Malaysians are very generous, so they get to collect tip. So Hasanah provided the token, and actually their take home was about 150% from what we invested in this initiative. About, again, Malaysians are very generous, so we got really good response. So for Hasanah, it was about, let's help the artists cepat, then what can we do? Of course, there's the food basket and the groceries that we work with, cashless program berlaksana. And the latest, which I'm happy to share here recently with CIMB and CENDANA, is what is called tripod. So we felt that, two is better than one, and three is definitely better than two in art space. And we also realized the power of collaboration. So again, Hasanah was trying to kind of like live the spirit. Let's go for this, guys. And we would I would share with this later on. But this is the tripod, is where all three organizations do what they do, but we have a shared message, which is when more organizations put together and support the arts, it's that's what we can do best for our artists. So I'll stop now and continue later on. So thank you. So that's what we've been doing to kind of keep, art is alive, and let's support our artists. Thank you.
You are welcome. And it's also very inspiring to see that the spirit to keep on going despite the challenges, despite the pandemic has hit us quite severely. The spirit is still there in the name of creative industry. Now, ladies and gentlemen, next we have Rafe Haneef, the CEO of Group Transaction Banking and CIMB Foundation. Over to you, Rafe. Encik Rafe Haneef, are you there? All right, I think perhaps we are still figuring out as why Rafe is still not able to join us. I mean, he was there before this, but I think something perhaps on the technical issues. No worries, we'll get that sorted out. I think in the interest of time, allow me just to keep on going and have the pleasure to also introduce you, Ms. Izan Satrina, the founding chief executive for Cultural Economy Development Agency, known as CENDANA. So Izan, if you may just take from here.
Sure, but Rafi's with us now. Shall I pass the mic back to Rafi?
All right, okay. Would you...
Sorry, what happened was when the poll was going on, I didn't realize you have to exit the poll. So I was stuck at the poll. Sorry for that.
All right. So, no problem.
Thank you for having me. Assalamu alaikum and a pleasant evening to everyone. So my name is Rafe Haneef. I'm from CIMB Group. And also I'm looking after the CIMB Foundation. And one of the core objectives of CIMB Foundation, among others, is to promote what we call community well-being, which will also focus on supporting arts and cultural scenes in Malaysia. So to promote that key objective, we have in the past, back in 2020, launched the first, what we call the effort to ignite this, what we call this promotion of arts and cultural scene by holding the CIMB Arttober, which was held in October 2020. And it was in collaboration with 10 prominent art galleries in Malaysia, where we exhibited the artwork of local artists to promote the awareness of the local art scene and to get the transactions to be handled within the galleries back in 2020. It was beyond our expectation. It was very well received, and we thought this year we should certainly continue with that. And this time we are extending beyond October. So we're still calling it Arttober, but it is extending over 13 weeks. More than 100 artists are participating during this 13 weeks and displaying about 350 artworks. And we expect about 3 million ringgit worth of transactions to be carried out during this period. The idea is to create a vibrant marketplace for both the galleries and the artists to interact with the public. And we are encouraging our own customers, where we are giving 15% discount when they buy more than 10,000 ringgit of artwork from these participating galleries, to promote the better understanding of the local art scene and to help the local artists to have a more sustainable livelihood through these platforms. The second thing we have done this year is to hold a hotel art fair, which was done on the 4th of November. And it was inaugurated by Yang Berhormat Minister of Finance, Senator Tengku Datuk Seri Zafro. And we had more than 1,000 guests over the 4 days. And we had about 50 artists promoting their artwork in 9 galleries. And 75% of the artists are from the B40 segment. They are young and emerging, and they hold the future of the local art scene. And Hotel Four Seasons in KL and Langkawi also participating in these events. So what we find is the artists need a sustainable platform to showcase their creative work. And we need the public to be more aware of the local art scene. We have seen last year alone, we had about more than 300 million ringgit worth of imports into Malaysia from the creative economy. So we need to have this better platform to help the local art scene. And the last one I wanted to point out is this year, together with CENDANA and Yayasan Hasanah, we have ignited this or initiated this public-private collaboration, which is a 3-month event during the same period, where we would like to promote arts, cultural, and heritage campaign. This is called a tripart, where together with CENDANA and Yayasan Hasanah, we want to further deepen the local art scene across particularly the visual arts. And we really hope that this will continue in the years to come. And we're hoping that there could be even arts competition to help promote creativity and more production of local artwork from the local and emerging artists in Malaysia. That's a bit of a snapshot on what CIMB Group is doing to help support the local arts and cultural scene.
Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm sure that there is more that we want to hear from you, as well as the initiative of CIMB Group in 2022. Now, next and last but not least, please allow me to welcome Ms. Izan Satrina, the founding chief executive for the Cultural Economy Development Agency, CENDANA. Over to you, Izan.
Thank you, Dr. Zokhri. Assalamualaikum semua and good evening. Thank you for making time on a midweek to join us on this. I'm part of a team called CENDANA. We're a unit of MyCreative Ventures, as Junady had mentioned earlier. And for some who may not know us, we are tasked on promoting or developing and promoting the arts and culture sector of Malaysia. Now, we are part of MyCreative Ventures, which is a wholly owned company of Minister of Finance Incorporated. And we also report to the Ministry of Communications and Multimedia Malaysia. So as part of that relationship, our role is specifically on the arts and culture economy, and hence our name, Cultural Economy Development Agency. We look specifically as a kickoff when we were launched in late 2017 in performing arts, visual arts, independent music. And as of last year, we started work in craft as well. In small and medium spaces, less than 500 packs, and also in public spaces. So we're quite focused in our grassroots arts community and the scene. In terms of strategic pillars, we work specifically on 3 strategic pillars, which is energizing the arts. So we look into enhancing overall vibrancy of our local art scene. So that means about promotions, it talks about broadening access to the arts, increasing public engagement of the arts, increasing partnerships to the arts. And second strategic pillar is about empowering the community. So we look at the supply side as well, and about increasing the opportunities of success for our artists via grant programs, internship opportunities, delegations to new markets, capacity building programs. And the third strategic pillar we look into is about reorganizing policies and making sure the data we have for our sector is there. So if you're in the scene, you may realize that there's not much data or not consistent data that's available for our communities. And that's something we're hoping to change bit by bit. Part of our data collection includes a research that we did last year and also this year, of which the latest data shows that in view of the pandemic, more than 90% of our practitioners have been negatively impacted, with 70% having lost most or all of their income. And as Puan Zai had mentioned earlier on, we've been closed. We were the first to close and the last to open, unfortunately, but thankfully we are open. And that will help things. The government has been quite prihatin in the sense that they have introduced various stimulus packages to assist our communities. Via CENDANA, we have worked on Penjana, Prisma, and Pemulih. In total, that's 25 million in less than 2 years to assist the communities. We've recently approved 22 million to support 8,000 work opportunities for the communities. And with the sector now opening, together with Yayasan Hasanah and CIMB, we have rolled out our third Art in the City together with their platforms to transition our communities back to work. So that's a 3-month-long program, which we hope will provide additional 2,000 work opportunities for our sector. So Art in the City was launched end of September by our Minister of Communications and Multimedia Malaysia. And we're very thankful with the tripart program and collaboration, and we're hoping that it could also encourage other parties to perhaps carve out or design other efforts that will contribute to the development of the sector. I'll leave it on with that. Doc, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So those are the introductory notes on their respective organizations. What do they do? What they have been up to recently. Now, we have come to the discussion session in which there are interactive discussion with some questions, opinions, and feedbacks being shared throughout all panels. And we also appreciate if you do have any questions to be raised to all panels, please feel free to write down the questions. As a moderator, I'll try my very best to address these questions. I can't really promise in the interest of time, but we will try our best to address all of your queries and concerns. Now, let me start with a generic questions. Now, I think these generic questions is applicable more to MyCreative Ventures and to CENDANA because they have been receiving funds from the government. So with the recent announcement on budget allocation for the creative industry, how will it be utilized in your own perspective organizations, and how it will be utilized to reboot the creative sector in Malaysia? I think I'll start with Izan from CENDANA, and I'll go to Encik Junady. So it'll be fair. The last will start first, the first will just go to the last. Yeah, I've been trying to be fair. It's not easy to be fair, but we'll try. Izan, if you may want to start, please.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could have gone first in the introductions then. Look, I think it's encouraging that there has been consistent announcements and peruntukan under the budgets on a yearly basis for the arts and culture and the wider creative industries. If I can remind everyone, under Penjana, 150 million was allocated as well for the creative industries. My apologies, 225 million in totality across all the agencies. And prior to that, another 300 million was also provided for. So if we take a bigger picture lens under the National Malaysia Plan, actually 500 million is allocated for the whole industry. But when we talk about arts and culture, and I'll focus on that because that's where CENDANA is anchored in. We're very motivated to see some of the policy announcements that are there, from pengecualian duty hiburan to pengecualian cukai pendapatan, to pengecualian cukai anjuran program seni budaya, to also some of the allocations that has been announced under the MyCreative Ventures group. And that includes the implementation of Rio Keluarga Malaysia at an allocation of 20 million. And of course, under the ministry itself, there is 188 million that's allocated across its agencies. And I think that's as much as I can sort of share for now, Doc, and we'll have to wait for the details of that budget. However, in terms of aspirations, perhaps I can just touch base on that. Should there be definitive allocations under CENDANA, we would like to, of course, continue some of our recovery initiatives. And as I again rightly pointed out, because of the closing of the sector has just opened, our communities are going back to work. They are not going to have capital to restart work. So I think that's one aspect that we need to look into. We also need to build confidence amongst the public to come back to the arts and culture venues and activities. And the reason for that is based on data that we have. 92% of them don't feel safe coming back to the arts. So if we can, as you can see, traffic is back and shopping malls are full, I'm sure we'll be able to also pull the public back into the arts. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Jay, any thoughts or additional input from you?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Zokhri. Just to add on to what Izan, my esteemed colleague Izan had just mentioned, we as a group, we welcome what the government has announced. At the moment, we are still basing it on what has been publicly made known. But suffice to say that we are still anticipating the actual details, or the perincian or the butiran, as we call it within the government ecosystem when it comes down. And whatever the allocation that will come, we intend to leverage on it and expand further, because as I would call it, we are still in the recovery mode. We're still coming out of the pandemic, coming out of the economic doldrums that brought about by this pandemic. So there's still a lot of push and lifting that needs to be done for the industry as a whole. Right now, whilst Izan and CENDANA's focus is on the arts, craft, and the independent music, as a group, we actually support 10 pillars altogether. In addition to Izan and CENDANA's focus, we also focus on design, literature, culinary arts as well, creative education, fashion, which is coming on, and not forgetting content creation, which covers animation as well. So those would be the areas that, anchoring upon going back to the original mandate, on a wider context, the creative industry has its definition under the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTAD. So there are 21 segments identified. Of course, as we are now, we do intend, as on the longer term, we do intend to cover that breadth, but we will focus on the 10 pillars that we support, going back to the original mandate. And with whatever allocation that's granted to the group, whether it's to MyCreative Ventures or to CENDANA, or through the ministry, right? As a ministry, we are under the umbrella of, as Izan said, the Ministry of Communications and Multimedia, right? We intend to apply a leverage and multiplier model, smart partnerships, the tripart program that we just implemented is one good example. We partner with CIMB Foundation and Hasanah, right? And we intend to look for those kind of smart partnerships as well. Well, suffice to say that, in order to move the sector, to move the needle in the sector, especially we got a target of increasing the GDP contribution to say minimum of 3% over the next 3 years. It's not about one agency or a group of a few agencies. It's not about one ministry, but it cuts across, and it takes a collaboration of as many agencies as possible with the affinity for creative industry and the arts, right? And the ministries as well. Because if you look at it from a value chain standpoint, it comes all the way from the individuals, the artisans, the designers, the architects, the artists, right? And from there, it flows down the value, further up the value chain to the bigger players in the form of the production houses, the animation houses, and beyond that, there is a bigger market globally in the form of the offtake, in the form of the likes of, it cuts across into the sectors of entertainment, tourism, in fact, and we're looking at anchoring on the likes of Disney, Universal Studios, because that's where the flow goes. And in terms of art, it goes to the international market as well. So that's where we are looking at, and it is not just limited to Malaysian shores, it's got to go beyond, right? And like I said, we will explore all possibilities, right, with other agencies, private parties. From funding aspect, we're looking at partnering with perhaps equity crowdfunding platforms, peer-to-peer funding platforms, and the like, in order to be able to create a bigger fund size. Funding alone is not the answer, because it's an enabler. We have to play the developmental part as well. And that's where Izan and her team comes in, and MyCreative Ventures as a group will continue to support that, and we hope to expand beyond the current focus of arts, culture, and independent music to cover a broader spectrum of the creative industry. I'll stop there for now.
Yeah, thank you. Now, Puan Zai, I do note that Yayasan Hasanah does not receive any allocation from the government because of its status quo as a private entity. But do you see that any roles perhaps Yayasan Hasanah could play in leveraging or in rebooting the creative industry in Malaysia, alongside with MyCreative Ventures and CENDANA and CIMB Foundation and other sorts of agencies? How do you think the foundation can play its role in 2022?
Okay, thank you for that question. Before that, I have another poll, so which will be relating to what I'm about to say. So you see the what Hasanah does in terms of supporting the arts is we focus on, okay, our baseline is preservation and conservation of the cultural assets. One. And number two is to raise awareness and appreciation towards the assets, right? And we're talking cultural asset. I mean, I guess there is a preconceived notion about it's not so hip, it's not, it's not the thing, but it is important because it tells us of who we are. So that's the kind of focus we do in terms of supporting the arts. So back to your question, we. Like what we did for Arts Fast is we go to nook and corners. We kind of like, we support our friends from CENDANA and corporation like CIMB in terms of what we do is we call the practitioners to write to us. It was an open, I guess it was an open invite. So within a month we received 130 applications. That was, and then I guess. Also, our artisans were looking for who out there is providing this opportunity. So, so that to me, what Hasanah does in that manner is something that we could complement what other funders are already doing. Yeah, and if we look at there are I guess financial institution with their foundation as well that supports other form of art. So that's great. So for us in Hasanah, it really is reaching to our grassroots, Semenanjung, Sabah dan Sarawak, and you will find diamond in the rough really. And also what I want to highlight is the 2 years have given us an opportunity to look within ourselves, and we knew it already. Kita dah tahu, not that we don't know. We've got the best wayang kulit, for example, the recent October, the artist that was featured was amazing, and I do believe we have fantastic artists. So it's back to us now to really put ourselves on the pedestals, and betapa our art is fabulous, and look at what we have within us, and Hasanah will come in and wanting to spread that further and reach further, especially to the younger generation, to be in the know of what you have and be in supportive of what you have. That's why in one of our 21 recipient is a very young company. They do crafts. Of course, craft yang not so, I guess, developed like Studio C, but nonetheless, we applaud these youngsters who posted how to do sulam and whatnot, and within 50 minutes, garnering about 650 viewers. And every week they release a video, and first release was 11,000. So we welcome that. So our role, we enable, we catalyze, and kita try to be, we want to be, I guess, menyeluruh, and hope to see more partners, supporting this. Yeah.
Thank you. Now, Encik Rafe from CIMB Foundation, what about the foundation, its project and its forecast in 2022?
Well, in terms of what the foundation itself is looking at, as I mentioned, we focus on 4 areas, 4 pillars: education, environment, economic empowerment, and community well-being. I think 2 of the pillars will fit within this creative economy. It will be, arts and culture promotes community well-being. At the same time, by sustaining the livelihood of this creative industry, we will be able to, what we call, create more economic empowerment. So what's important to note is, if you look at Malaysia's GDP contribution from the economy, what we call the creative economy, was about 2%. This is based on the latest data that I have. Maybe it has improved now, and it's employing about 1 million people. And in terms of contribution to exports, was about 0.2%. Well, it's a good start, given this is an infant industry in Malaysia. What we need to look at is, what is the best in class in terms of creative economy today? And we have a close neighbor, Indonesia, which according to Indonesian data shows they are the third largest in terms of GDP contribution in the world from a creative economy. So US is number 1, Korea is number 2. And Indonesia, from a creative economy perspective, that industry contributes about 7.5% to the GDP and employs 17 million jobs. 56% women in terms of the employment. That's a significant, what we call contribution. And $20.5 billion in terms of exports back in 2017. I'm sure it has improved now. So this all started back in 2006, when there was a clear policy in terms of defining what creative economy is. They have a much wider subsectors. I think there are more than 20 over subsectors. They have added on interior decor, visual communication, photography, and so on, apps. So they have a much broader definition of creative industry. But what I would like to emphasize here is, once you've identified that creative economy can create more economic growth, and that could lead to better job creation, then we need a clear strategy. How do we protect this infant industry? Can there be some sort of subsidies for creation? And I think Encik Wan talked about the value chain. That's a really important area to focus on. How do we focus? How do we develop a comprehensive ecosystem across creation, production, distribution, consumption, and conservation? These are the 5 areas Indonesia has been focusing on since 2006. And in 2014 or 13, they actually brought creative industry within the Ministry of Tourism. So they have a Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy that has a clear strategy in terms of developing this infant industry. I think Malaysia, we have a diverse population, and we have the talent pool. What we need is a clear strategy and definitely support from the government. And where CIMB, the private sector, can come in through our CSR, we can create the platform. We can bring the artists and link them with the public to our customers so that they could find a marketplace. Because, creation, production, but it will require distribution. So the platform is really important. And we are even thinking about probably creating a permanent platform, an online platform where these things can be directly promoted by the artists themselves. This could be another way to create a more viable platform. So I see a bright future for this infant industry. And we hope with all these initiatives, we can jointly groom and grow this industry further.
Thank you. Now, you mentioned the word strategy, and I think in every plans or visions that we want to have, there must be a clear strategy. So I want to ask Izan and Junady, from your own evaluations and from your own organizational standpoint, is there a strategy actually to position Malaysia as an art hub in Southeast Asia in the near future? If we do not have, what would be the stepping stone that we should establish next year so that we'll be known as a hub for creative industry in the future? Okay, now I'll go to Junady. All right? I'll try to be fair.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Zokhri. I'll spare Izan the blushes this time. I'll take the question first, but I will take it from more macroeconomic standpoint, and let Izan talk about it from the subject matter standpoint. I think if you're asking about whether a strategy to position Malaysia as an art hub in Southeast Asia, I would strongly advocate that because of our geographical location. We are at the center of Southeast Asia and ASEAN for that matter. So with the reach of almost 1 billion wider population of the ASEAN region, right? And all within 2-3 hours flight away. And we have that connectivity to east and west, not to mention north and south as well, given our location. So that's the comparative advantage that we need to leverage upon strategically. And talking about a strategy, yes, we've been talking about the strategy, but I think what's missing right now is a clear roadmap in the form of a document. The last one I can say would be the Dasar Industri Kreatif Negara, which was in 2010, right? And it has been some years since, but I can say is that there was a vision behind it. When we talk about the DIKN back in 2010, it came out of the economic transformation program that was launched by the government then. And it's something that needs to be reactivated, right, going forward. And this is where we need to anchor upon the 12 Malaysia plan to start with. What are the plans in there, and has given sufficient mention about the creative sector. And we just need to expand from that to develop a clearer roadmap, right? Because there are many documents and many literature that's available when we talk about the creative economy. And of course, internationally it's called the orange economy. And as an organization, we want to position ourselves as the focal point, as the connector to leverage upon smart partnerships I mentioned earlier, because I said there's a wider market beyond Malaysia, and it would be a key for the growth of our creative economy for us to strategically position ourselves as the hub. Right? And with that, I shall hand it over to Izan to give a little bit more insight in terms of the subject matter itself.
Thank you, Junady. Doc, I do not agree that there should be a strategy for it. I absolutely advocate for it. But most importantly, what I think is required as the basic need for us as a foundation in this creative economy is to ensure we have a strategy back home first, and to ensure our ducks are in line, to ensure we have an ecosystem, but it's also in some way, shape, or form under various ministries and agencies. Everyone has a role to play, including the private sector and the industry as well. I think that perhaps will be the first thing that needs to be done. And like Mr. Junady had mentioned, we have been talking about these strategies for a while. And we're hoping that 2022 could be the year for us to actually cascade it into a proper documentation for everyone's reference. I understand that the Dasar Kebudayaan Negara has recently been launched by the Prime Minister and the Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture. Unfortunately, I can't comment on it because I haven't finished reading it. And I can make reference to CENDANA's Kuala Lumpur Cultural and Creative Economy Report, Cultural City Report, pardon me, that's available on our website. And that provides a baseline of information of what our sectors are providing in terms of jobs and revenue. That should be a basis for strategy for a lot of us, but that's 2016 data. So we need to make reference to the latest data and to see how COVID-19 has affected us and what are the new interventions that we need to introduce to also scale up. So in conclusion, yes to the strategy. I do suggest, however, to do it back home first, back in Malaysia, before we talk about Southeast Asian and the world.
Thank you. Now, Puan Zai, you are the head of arts and public spaces of Yayasan Hasanah. Why do you think that arts and culture industry has always been underappreciated for decades in Malaysia? I mean, I'm quoting this from the actual person who asked the question. It says that for decades. So your comment on this, Puan Zai. Okay.
I think, thank you for the question. I think it's got a lot to do with perhaps our education system in a way that it's not really, brought to the attention of the children when they first. That's one. Education system is very important. So I'm always envious of Indonesia because they have Kementerian Pendidikan dan Kebudayaan, and now they add research and technology. That's what they did. So can you imagine all universities in Indonesia for their PhD program will have to come up with a research in regards to culture. So immediately berapa puluh ribu culture research they can have. So education system is one. And number two, secondly, perhaps is the influence of cultural imports that's happening in Malaysia juga is something that is affecting, I guess, the level of appreciation of our public in that manner. And it's never deemed as cool, I suppose, you know. So that could be something, but who's responsible to maybe provide a solution, even if it's not the total solution, it could be, you know, to defray this statement that's like art is not being appreciated would be organizations like ourselves, corporate bodies, of course, CENDANA, to you know, bring it back to the public and talk about. We need to talk about good stories of Malaysia, kan? So culturally, sometimes I think, is there something culturally wrong? I've heard young people at Kedai Mamak speaking about, I'm so malu to say I'm Malaysian. This is a kisah benar, right? This is a real example. I hear them speaking, I'm so malu to say I'm Malaysian because of a certain happening. So the problem is we don't highlight enough good things about us. That's the thing. So media, social media, us as Malaysian play that role quite importantly. Now everybody has the microphone sekarang. The media is not what it used to be. So we need to kind of get to that root cause as well, to you know, bring out the good stories, talk about the success of Malaysia abroad, locally. I don't know if many of us know that there is a renowned violin maker in Johor that people are queuing to buy his violin. And I know for a fact that Datuk Mustafa Fusay, who was our National Symphony Orchestra conductor, believed this particular violin and has it insured. Do we know about it? We don't, right? And so I would say it's that we need to, you know, get back to the education system, incorporate that into the education system, and also role of, you know, public and private organization to, you know, get that going, and also the role of media. So, you know, to all that, you know, amalgamated, we need to do it. Otherwise, we're gonna, I don't want to have to go to my neighboring country to watch Mak Yong lah, for example. That's, you know, that will be a disaster. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I somehow echo with you because there's a really strong detachment of the young generations, perhaps a bit of my generation as well, and the younger, nak mengaku muda lah tu. All right, the young generations right now are on the importance of culture and the importance of identity. We could not see, but all of these negativities that we are seeing for the past few years, it's not really about our culture. It does not define us. It does not really show who we are as Malaysians, or who we are as a Malay culture, a Chinese culture, Indian culture, or anyone's culture that forms Malaysia's culture. So, and I want to relate that to the question by a student. I cannot comment much. Nanti jadi panelist pula kan. All right. Now, there is a question by a Sunway University student by the name of Shannon Lim. Now, what is unique about the arts in Malaysia, Puan Zai?
What is unique about the arts in Malaysia? I think first and foremost, the multi-racialness of this country is rich, right? I remember Junady was talking about, they even have culinary, heritage that they're supporting. We do that too, right? And Malaysia is such a makan nation, right? So from food to music to theater, the uniqueness of that needs to be celebrated without sounding so schema. It's not, you know. So if you guys, if you look at the artwork, for example, that's being produced by our artists, the standard and quality, we have artists being represented by Momo Gallery. Do we know that? Maybe some of us do, maybe some of us don't, right? We have the artistic director of a big Ellen Ailey, that's a big theater in New York, artistic director who is co-artistic director who's Malaysian. Do we know that? We don't, or maybe we do. So what is unique is, back to Malaysia, I would go back to our multiracialness. I will go back to the food that we have, and betapa kaya and the history that comes from all of this bangsa and this kaum. And I haven't even gone to Sabah dan Sarawak to talk about that. So let's celebrate that diversity and the richness of that, rather than being territorial. Let's not be territorial about that. I think we need to learn to own it as a nation, as opposed to bangsa in your form that you have to fill, sort of thing, if you know what I mean. So I think I would just go back to that, and kalau nak faham juga, pergi refer maybe Cartoon Lat ke as that would be a good reference. Go back to that. That's basic, but it represents us. That's my take.
Yeah, I think we should more going to the museums, to the art galleries, all these cultural exhibitions to expose ourselves. Now, that brings me to Encik Rafe. In your opinion, what do you think about the sustainability of an art retail business in Malaysia, saying, right, exhibitions or galleries in Malaysia, from your own point of view, sir?
So if you look at from a financial viability and sustainability of an art gallery, it looks at both supply and demand. So for an art gallery, the first thing is, and it has to be jointly promoted. You can't just have the supply side hoping for the demand to pick up, or to have the demand picking up, then you find the supply. It's what I call a strategy, as you highlighted earlier, must focus on, as I mentioned earlier, the creation, production, plus also the distribution. And the supply side needs a lot of support. So whilst we can talk about strategy, I think when the rubber hits the road, whether the strategy will create the right outcome and impact depends on the implementation. And that's where many of our strategies often do not meet that expectation, because we often spend a lot of energy, effort, and time on the strategy, and we get so exhausted that we're not able to implement it properly. So I guess we need to spend more time on the implementation, looking at how we can create more source of all this creative economy. How do we build up the supply side? At the same time, on the demand side, as you pointed out earlier, the awareness has to build up. How do we get better appreciation? It's through early education. And that will require quality art education in school. And art diplomacy is another way. Can we promote Malaysia through all this heritage, this multi-diverse culture that we have? So you come to Malaysia, you get to see a variety of culture, whether it's food, whether it's visual arts, performing arts. You get to see different types of dancers, food, and so on. So I think quality art education in school is really critical. And the other one is in terms of museums. Do we have enough museums? We do have a lot of museums, but are they run professionally to bring out all these various cultural heritage we have here, and to bring the tourists in, not just to go to malls for shopping, but also to come and basically appreciate the cultural diversity that we have in Malaysia. Get quality tourism rather than mass tourism into Malaysia. That's another significant area we need to focus on. And in terms of public art galleries, can we get more developers to provide public art spaces where people can go and be involved in the creation, production, as well as showcasing the artwork? Can there be part of what we call a holistic development, where we not only focus on providing what we call roof or a shelter, but also to look at providing a more viable ecosystem for people to have a good community. So coming back to your point, a gallery will be sustainable if there is a steady supply plus the demand. And the demand can be built up. We, through our various activities, through CIMB Foundation and our CSR activities, we can do a lot of promotion with our network across ASEAN. We are present in 11 countries. We can promote our heritage, our culture and arts across different countries. But whether they're financially viable depends on how well they run the galleries. If they can show they have 2-3 years of good financial, what we call statements, we can then obviously help them with financing, like any other business.
All right, thank you. Now,
Dr. Zokhri, can I quickly add before I kind of slip my mind? There was a question about how does organization like a support. I just like to mention that Khazanah, actually, we do have what is called our arts residency program, which is open third quarter of every year. So do look it up in Khazanah National Berhad, because it's something that we artists can apply to be sent for residency for 3 months out of Malaysia abroad. And that's about building capacity. So they're already practicing artists. So you want to build your capacity. So we help that. And also in terms of Yayasan Hasanah pula, when it comes to our practicing artisans, we do have building capacity programs, because it's important. You can be, going back to what Rafe was saying, you can be building or making the best craft, but if you don't know what to do next, you need to have that knowledge, especially now, post-COVID. Things have changed so much, so we're big into building capacity in Hasanah, and we're also in Khazanah, we also do have an arts residency program for artists. So we invite, I'm like letting know, do look up in our website as well.
Thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen and friends, we are actually exceeding on the original time, on the ending of the forum. We apologize for that, but because that we've been receiving questions as well as some comments, and I just feel that it's just unfair for us to shut these questions down. So if it's okay for everyone, to all our listeners and attendees, I'm just going to extend it a little bit until 9:10 for the Q&A and the opinion sessions, and then we will close by 9:15. I hope that's okay. Apologies, we are extending a bit late, for 15 minutes late, but we'll try our very best. Now, JJ, very quick on this. It's not a question, but it's an opinion. There are many heroes in our arts and culture space. We have the software, our superb artists, for instance. We do need to hoist them on the pedestal, perhaps a contemporary art museum that is professionally managed and run. We need to address why some of these existing institutions are not staying relevant or not doing what they are supposed to be doing. Your opinions on this, Jay?
Thank you, Doctor, and thank you for that question. Okay, as an opinion, I feel that it has to come both ways, because the creative economy and arts and culture is about responding to the senses, whether it's viewability, audibility, which translates to the mind and therefore the heart. So there has to be a consistent platform or avenue for the throughput, if I can say that, So yes, we would definitely support the idea of a permanent gallery. We have had that established, but not many have been sustained or managed well. That's my opinion. But I go back to my earlier opinion, where it's not about just one establishment that's tasked to manage this. It takes the whole entire ecosystem across the country, right? The state level, the local governments. So this is the mindset that we need to inculcate and advocate across. And there's a lot of awareness creation that needs to be done by all those involved in this ecosystem. And it's just not limited to, again, government organization, and it cuts across to JLCs with the affinity for arts and culture and creative economy, right, to play their part. And the various foundations and associations as well. We would like to reach out to all of you in order to be able to move together, and perhaps establish something that's really, we have all the existing establishments that's already in place, but it's a case of now, how do we preserve that, right? How do we preserve what has been put in place and be able to build upon what has been put in place? And what I observe also is that we have this tendency to create a new when an existing one is not working, right? But if you look at the more, how should I say, not say more established, but other societies abroad, they tend to keep refreshing the old in terms of heritage rather than building new. So for us, that is it's a mindset shift that needs to happen for all of us, actually. right? Instead of considering something that's old, we have to think of it as something that can be consistently refreshed, right? If I can say to that extent. I hope that answers the question. It's more of an opinion and an observation I have to share.
Yeah, indeed. Now, we are approaching 9:06 and we should end by 9:10. All right, I'll give you each of the panelists to provide a 1 minute, exactly 1 minute. I'm going to time it. 1 minute takeaway lessons from the talk this evening, something that you really want to craft this message to our listeners out there when it comes to anticipating 2022 for the creative industry in Malaysia. I will start with Rafe, and then I'll go to Puan Zai, and then to JJ, and then to Izan. All right, so let's go in that sequence. So Rafe, if you want to go first.
Be creative. I think there's a huge opportunity for this industry. We are only 2% in terms of GDP contribution. We can definitely hit probably 6-7%. So we are here to help you. So keep focused, deliver on the supply side. We will fix the demand side.
Wow, very short, precise, inspiring, and very confidence building to me. All right, Puan Zai, on to you. A 1 minute takeaway lessons, please.
Okay, the power of collaboration. So complement each other, don't compete. Don't be too territorial, and own it. And last but not least, I think for arts leadership, we need to have strong art leadership. And perhaps if anyone is listening out there, if we could have a appointee Minister of Finance, which is a huge taking, why not the same for the arts? Really, I think you need to get the right people to do the right job right. So there. Later, jangan lupa share poll result, yeah, Dr. Zokhri, at the end of it. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Yes. I'll go to JJ.
Right. Thank you. Okay. In summary, I would say a mindset shift from both the demand and supply side, right? Getting the infrastructure in place so that the throughput or distribution is smooth from upstream, as in the raw material, to the eventual output, right? Wherever the offtake may be in the international market. So that's key. And as an organization, as a government organization that's tasked with this mandate, we intend to continue to provide avenues for participation. So it's not just about funding assistance. I said what we're looking to deliver avenues and platforms for participation and involvement in the creative economy. And with that, if I may add, do follow us, MyCreative Ventures and CENDANA, and for those who are already following us, keep following us, stay tuned. We will come out with the announcements at the appropriate time as to the events and activities that we have lined up for 2022. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you once again. Izan, Satrina from CENDANA.
Thanks, Doc. I think, firstly, thank you to the panel speakers and Doc for also being part of this, and to all who's joined tonight. I think as a takeaway, I hope these conversations can continue beyond tonight. So if anything, you can definitely reach us on, reach me directly, even on izan@cendana.com.my. We're quite accessible. I'd like to try and see how we can work with the community on continuing some recovery initiatives next year. Our focus will perhaps be looking at reviewing and reintroducing arts education programs again, but how do you do that post-pandemic, especially when younger Malaysians have not been vaccinated as yet? And what are the thoughts the communities may have? Because I think some of the conversations were brought up here shows that we cannot necessarily depend on government funds on a year-to-year basis. So what if we start together a National Arts Recovery Fund, where as a collective, industry, government, and corporates can also, I guess, pull together resources to contribute back to the communities. And I'll take up Rafi's offer to, of course, extend it first to the CIMB customer database to see how they can all contribute 10 ringgit each to this fund to go back to the community. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Now, to all of the questions and opinions that's not been addressed, rest assured, the organizing teams is actually collecting all these questions, and we will think on what would be the best channel and method to address this question. So as all the panelists have been saying, do not shun away from all their Twitter handles, their LinkedIn, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. I do not know whether you have TikTok. I'm sure that they will find way to address all these questions accordingly. Now, interestingly, Puan Zai from Yayasan Hasanah has crafted 2 polls, and I'm sure that we all want to hear or listen or see the results of these 2 polls. Unfortunately, the panelists could not vote, but it's okay. So for the first poll, are Malaysians more appreciative of the local creative industry during the post-pandemic? As we can see, 43% said yes, 17% said no, 35% said not sure, 6% said I don't know. And if I may be blatantly honest, I belong to the 35%. I'm just not sure because this is just not my forte, but I definitely will follow up. All right, let's go on to the second poll. The second poll reads, what would you spend to attend a local theatre performance, culture and heritage performance under 50? So the largest would be, doesn't matter if I love it, 42%. I admit that's me. I would pay for everything to get my favorite concert. And the least poll is only if it is complimentary, all right? So I think from there we can gauge the awareness as well as the spirit of the Malaysians, and what could we do as these agencies or relevant bodies to increase the level of participation of our public. So thank you for giving us the results of this poll. With that, ladies and gentlemen, allow me, before we close this at 9:15, allow me just to read up some important announcements by relevant institutions. Now, there will be an open art classes curated for CENDANA's umbrella event, Art in the City. The open art classes, or AAC, is held on the 29th October to 21st November. The OAC features instructors that are caliber and experienced to share with their knowledge on topics chosen depending on the platform and expertise. If you are interested, and I hope that you do, please visit www.baskl.com/AITC. Now, the second announcement is that there is a Panggung Rakyat by Kuchipudi. In the upcoming episode of Panggung Rakyat, in conjunction with the Art in the City, we are honored to present a traditional dance in collaboration with the Temple of Fine Arts featuring Kuchipudi sisters. Kuchipudi is a traditional Indian dance from the originated from Andhra Pradesh, India. So do join us for Panggung Rakyat, which will be broadcasted this Saturday, 13 November, 8:30 p.m. on Facebook, CENDANA Malaysia. You do not have to go anywhere else. You just have to be on the screen, and then there you go. You'll get it. You'll get it for free even. Yep. And the organizing team is also sharing a list of announcements in the chat. Just to keep you updated on what's happening throughout the year, as well as what's going to happen in 2022. So please read through on the group chat if you are interested, and I hope that you do. Please join all of these events accordingly. And with all of the LinkedIn, Twitter, social media handlers that has been shared just now, I hope that you will follow us so that we will work together as a community, as one big happy family, Keluarga Malaysia, to leverage the creative industry once again, because we are not doing it for ourselves, we are doing it for our identity as a country, and we have to do it together as a nation. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us tonight. I hope that you really enjoyed the session. Forgive me if there's anything that slipped my mind or probably overhyped or over artistic in a way, but I'll try my very best to encourage a very lively and constructive discussion. Thank you once again for joining us this evening. Congratulations to CENDANA for organizing this, and we hope that more of this event will come out soon in the name of a creative industry. So on behalf of CENDANA, I wish everyone a pleasant evening, good night, stay safe, stay positive, and let's look forward for a bright year in 2022. Bye-bye and good night.
Thank you to all those who joined us.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
See you again.
Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye.
Art in the City is back to bring inspiration, energy and light to Malaysia. CENDANA has created a jam-packed series of events to help bring everyone together through the arts. The Kuala Lumpur Creative Economic Forum brings together creative minds to connect and create the future of Malaysian art. Panggung Rakyat promotes Malaysia's unique arts and culture heritage through a series of authentic and traditional performances to inspire and wow the senses. CENDANA Open Art Classes are a series of free weekend classes by some of the most renowned artists and gurus in Malaysia for Malaysians. The Light Project aims to shine hope and lights on the nation. All around Malaysia, public art and performances will light up the night. Studio C aims to curate and shape a contemporary, lively and inspiring selection of high-quality Malaysian craft products that reflects our rich artistic heritage, commitment to social responsibility and focus on a more sustainable future. KL Weekend is a free 4-day city festival fueling Kuala Lumpur with exciting dance, music, workshop, talks, screenings, food experiences and more. 50 years later, the National Cultural Congress Symposium will discuss and examine the development of culture in Malaysia. And Sensory will immerse you in a world of artworks without boundaries for the whole month of December in Kuala Lumpur. Explore and discover their stories and imaginations in the new world around you. Art returns to Malaysia with Art in the City. Come and join us to dance, sing, learn and be inspired by some of Malaysia's brightest art.